we saw the fact that INEC didn't live up to expectations of many Nigerians.
Hi guys, it's widely open that INEC sold Nigerians to APC. Majeed Dahiru has come out to say that INEC didn't work to the expectation of many Nigerians. This is a real spokesperson that says things the way it is, not APC spokesperson like Festus Keyamo and Femi Fani-Kayode that work for their stomach infrastructure. Guys, watch this video and hear many things Majeed Dahiru said about the 2023 past presidential election. And don't forget to share your thought with us.
Good morning, Majeed. Good to have you join us today.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me today. Good morning, Steve, and good morning, OG.
After the general elections, we know what has happened. The Southeast in particular, was the hardest hit in terms of the losses for the PDP. A region that used to hold that place down 100% as PDP states is now left with just one state for PDP in Enugu State. What will be your assessment? And to ask the obvious, did you see this coming?
Thank you very much. You actually asked the obvious question because we had this conversation here severally.
Yes.
About what was coming. Yes. I mean, we actually saw it coming, but politicians are incurable optimists. I mean, they see possibility in every impossibility. And sometimes their own projections are not something you can easily situate within the confines of common logic of reasoning. So we saw it coming, but I'm sure the PDP people didn't quite see this coming. It was quite clear ahead of the elections that after 24 years of consistent support for the PDP by the people of the Southeast, at a time that they expected that the party should have rewarded them with the ticket of the presidential candidacy of the main opposition PDP, and the PDP did not do that, and a northerner picked it in the person of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. We saw the revolt coming, and the revolt indeed happened. And if you ask me, rightly so that maybe in the next dispensation, the PDP can now sit down and reassess what has happened to it, both in 2015 and 2023, when it similarly violated its zoning arrangement, and maybe begin the process of rebuilding its party by giving assurances now to all its, hitherto strongholds about the need to carry them along and not take them for granted anymore. So this was something we saw coming, and it was a hard lesson for the PDP to have learned this way, but it's okay. It's politics, and it has happened. So the PDP needs to now begin to rebuild its party from the very scratch and make sure that, it obeys its own internal rules and, give a sense of belonging to every constituent part of its party, particularly the Southeast. It was a region that they shouldn't have taken for granted, and unfortunately they did. And so, of course, that was one of the reasons why the PDP lost this election, because that zone is the most important support base for the PDP, at least since 2015, when the party went into opposition. And so one should have thought that what happened in the APC should have happened in the PDP, where we saw a reciprocation of some sort by the northern wing of the APC to the southwest part of the country that went into alliance with them in 2015 to take power from the same PDP. So we had expected the northern wing of the PDP as well to have similarly done same thing for the Southeast going into the 2023 election. I mean, it's better sometimes to do the right thing and lose an election than do the wrong thing and as well lose. So I'm sure lessons have been learned, and we hope that the PDP will take stock of what has happened and see if they can pick up the pieces, the bits and pieces, and move ahead.
All right. I would like your overall assessment of the election and Atiku Abubakar's petition at the tribunal. Yesterday, he insisted that he will continue to challenge the outcome of the election, which he has described as illegitimate. Despite threats by the APC that opposition parties were plotting or are plotting to truncate the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his vice, Kashim Shettima, he's maintained that the election process is flawed. I'd like your assessment as well.
Whereas the election, particularly the presidential election of the 25th of February, may not have been the best of elections. I mean, we saw the fact that INEC didn't live up to expectations of many Nigerians. We saw that it was generally far from perfect. I mean, it was something that was generally acknowledged as not really meeting up to expectations of Nigerians, particularly after the passage of the amended Electoral Act into law, which a lot of people had envisaged will clear up and clean up the processes and make it better. However, in spite of all of these shortcomings by INEC, security agencies, and some other undesirable elements within the system, my overall assessment of the election is that, given the dynamics on the ground before and during this election, and looking at the distribution of the votes among the leading contenders for the presidency, my own opinion is that it was a fair reflection of the dynamics on the ground before and during the election. For example, if you look at the PDP went into this election with 3 candidates. You had Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party, who was a member of the PDP up until 2022. You had Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso of the NNPP, who was also a member of the PDP until 2022. And of course, Atiku Abubakar, who was the candidate for the PDP. 3 of them went into the race, and they actually pulled significant numbers. Whereas the APC, the ruling APC, went into the race with their candidate, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, with a house that was largely intact, even though they had their own differences too. And if you look at the overall vote cast, the fact that Asiwaju emerged the winner does not actually mean that the APC won the election. What I'm trying to say is simple. Whereas Asiwaju emerged as the winner of the election, but because he scored a minority vote of the total vote cast, which is something that happened for the first time since 1999, it meant that the APC as a party lost Nigeria because he secured barely just a little over 1/3 of the total vote cast. And he also just secured victory in about 12 states, alongside Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, who similarly secured victory in 11 states plus the FCT, making it 12. So it was a tight race that clearly showed that the wishes of the Nigerian people actually prevailed, in that they rejected the APC, clearly. They rejected the APC, but unfortunately, the opposition didn't provide a formidable force and a united front into this election. And so the Nigerian people had 3 choices to pick from, and so they divided their votes among these 3. I know that there are disputes about the numbers, even despite the geopolitical distribution of these votes. The numbers are being disputed, whether the numbers add up or not. Well, that will be for the courts to decide. But the politics of the election, if you look at it critically, there are lots of wins for the Nigerian people. For example, you saw a third force movement that was predicted ahead of time. Now, they were going to be the third force. They're going to be the force to watch out for, the obedient movement. They lined up behind the candidate of the Labour Party from across the country, from all ethnic groups, from all religious groupings. They lined up behind the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and they pulled impressive numbers and caused major upsets across the country. Upsets that are substantial enough to put the establishment on notice that Nigerians are no longer ready for their underperformance and misrule that has characterized our democracy since 1999. So that was another win for the Nigerian people. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, Asiwaju was actually programmed to lose this election because he came into the election with an overburden of incumbency disadvantage arising from the underperformance of the APC in the last 8 years. However, the PDP was not able to maximize this disadvantage into an electoral advantage for it by putting its house in order ahead of the election, so that a Peter Obi and the Kwankwaso would not have left the party, and so that they would have worked together for the victory of the party. So if the house was intact, the PDP would have won this election. But going into the election with about 3 candidates and expecting to win is a bit too optimistic. And again, the numbers may not add up, I do not know, but the courts will now decide that. But realistically speaking, I think that the election results reflect the dynamics on the ground. If you look at the places, for example, that the Labour candidates won, these were places he was expected to win. He won in Lagos, he won in Abuja. These are some of the urban areas where the anti-establishment forces were most, dominant, expectedly. And he won in the southeast region where he comes from decisively, and he made certain inroads into the north, particularly the middle belt area of the north. It was expected, for example, that Asiwaju would make an impressive showing in the southwest region, which he did, And because of the effort of his allies in the North, particularly in the Northwest, we saw the effort they made to actually pull some numbers for him, which actually made the difference. Mr. Peter, for example, was not exactly expected to do as well as any of the other candidates in the Northwest and parts of the Northeast, and expectedly he didn't do that well. But at the same time, the numbers are being disputed. So the court will now decide with the evidence that the different contenders and those disputing the results will present at the court. If they present numbers that actually show indeed that the numbers didn't add up despite the realistic distribution of the votes, then of course the court should do the needful. But until the court decides that, from a realistic point of view, I think it was a fair reflection. And if you ask me, the biggest winners in this election are the obedience. And Mr. Peter B indeed is the hero of this election, as pointed out by Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. I think he lived up to expectations and even surpassed some expectations. And I think that the obedient movement in this election are the MVPs, if you ask me. They have redefined Nigerian politics. They have restored the people as the structure and not a few self-appointed political potentates that call the shots from some narrow confines of their bedroom. So I think somewhat there was a democratic revolution that took place, and it was a win-win-win situation for the entire Nigerian people. The resilience of the Nigerian people actually annulled substantially, if you ask me, the defects of some of the anomalies that the election actually threw up. So the resilience of the people annulled those defects and converted them to some advantages. So it was an impressive outing for Nigerian people, despite the shortcomings by the electoral umpire, security agencies, and some other critical stakeholders.
So you're saying that you think it was a fair election. I asked you earlier, what do you make of Atiku's petition? He's not the only one who has petitioned. Also, the Labour Party, Peter Obi, who you've just mentioned as the hero of the election, also sent in a petition. And I'll also like your assessment of Festus Keyamo's call to the DSS for the arrest of Peter Obi, for making Peter Obi and the Labour Party, especially Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed, for making insightful comments.
Again, let me restate it clearly. While I do not have the numbers at my disposal, I mean, the candidates with their agents may have the numbers, because I understand that the Labour Party people are saying that, look, yes, we have won in our stronghold, but the numbers are suppressed, and we think we won with much more numbers. So if they have such evidence, the courts are open for them to take them to, and people will look at it. Even the public will see it, and I'm sure there will be public pressure on the judiciary to do the needful, to do justice in this instance. But other than that, I still think that, given the geopolitical distribution of the votes, I think the outcome, the process might be flawed, but the outcome at the end of the day, because of the resilience of the Nigerian people, I think reflected some of the realities on the ground. And so the PDP expecting to win this election is a bit too optimistic, if you ask me, because they went through the election with a divided house, with the house that was divided against itself. So expecting to win against the APC that was largely intact, despite their own internal wranglings, was a little bit too optimistic, if you ask me. Now, coming to the issue of Mr. Festus Keyamo, I think that at this time, members of the ruling party should actually be calling for peace, suing for reconciliation, and tone down the rhetoric because elections are over. They are going to lead the next government. And it is expected of them to, at this time, be statesmanly in everything they do and seek reconciliation and seek to embrace the opposition so that they will have, a stronger legitimacy to govern the country, given the fact that they won with a narrow number that was like a minority of the total vote count, something that was the first time we are seeing such kind of winning since 1999. Although that does not make the winning illegitimate in itself, but the reality on the ground is that it was a narrow victory for the APC. And so more than any other person, I expect Festus Keyamo and other spokespersons of the ruling party to be conciliatory in their tone, to be reconciliatory, and expect the president-elect to reach out to his co-contenders for the presidency. He should reach out to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, he should reach out to Mr. Peter of the Labour Party, he should reach out to Kwankwaso and all others and seek their support in order to show up the legitimacy of his mandate that is already legitimate because it has been duly declared winner by the constituted authority in the land. However, he needs to do more to confirm more political legitimacy on his mandate. And the kind of rhetoric we see from some of his spokespersons are not the kind of things that will endear him to the Nigerian people and to his opponents. Because a situation where nearly 2/3 of the voters voted against you means one thing. It means you are not coronated as an emperor. You are a reluctantly hired workman that is still on probation, and so you need to prove your mettle, you need to prove your capacity through good governance for them to now begin to have full confidence in you. And I do not seek a destabilization of his administration. I do not see any form of political instability. So it is in his own interest to rein in his spokespersons. It is in his own interest to put that call across to his opponents. This is not an election where he would expect them to come.
Right.
He should put the call across because INEC's underperformance in this election
All right.
left a lot of doubt
On that
about
note,